There I was doom scrolling in the middle of the night when I saw a clip of random fandoms coming together saying, just this once, to defeat some hitherto unknown foe. At the time, I had no context, thought it was funny, and kept scrolling, but then I saw another, and another, and another. Okay, what is going on? Did I miss something? And it turns out, yeah, I did. Apparently, an animated film came out that was so bad that it's uniting different fandoms against it. I was also hearing that the movie was weirdly homophobic, slightly transphobic, and overall problematic. The movie in question is called Lesbian Space Princess, but you probably know that by now. And I just couldn't help but wonder, how can a movie with a planet named Clitopolis, run by two queens and a gay princess, be homophobic? Naturally, I wanted to get in on the fun, but I can't hate on something without actually knowing what it is I'm hating on. And a lot of people were saying what they thought happened in the movie or what they had heard happened. So I paid real money for this movie so you don't have to. Now, this is going to be a fairly in depth and nuanced take on the movie, so if you're just here to keep the hate going and not actually understand the film or the discussion around it, then this probably isn't the video for you. Because, spoiler alert, I don't think this movie was that bad. It certainly wasn't great, or even good for that matter, but as far as comedies go, I've definitely seen worse, and it has some legitimately good jokes and homages. However, there's absolutely nothing so egregious in this film that should be uniting the KKK and Black Panther Party as it has. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start from the top and you can decide for yourself. This movie starts with a voiceover from the main character Saira as she reminisces over her relationship with Kiki. She's made a whole scrapbook about their time together, and over the course of the pictures, you can see Kiki become less and less enthused about the relationship, and by the end of the montage, Kiki dumps her.
You're dumped. Fuck.
By the way Saira's talking about their relationship, you would think it's been 2 years when in reality it's only been 2 weeks. This is problem number one. I'm not really familiar with LGBTQ stereotypes or community jokes, but I do think there's a stereotype about queer people falling in love quickly or moving in together faster than normie relationships. So already they're playing on a not harmful per se, but low hanging fruit trope. Kiki dumps Saira, and we start to understand Saira's character a little more. She's constantly apologizing for things, even when they're not her fault.
Sorry. Oh, sorry for being sorry.
She's clingy, and she really doesn't have any self worth or confidence. She's just like you, kind of a loser. She also gets broken up with on stage in front of her crowd, her parents, and on her birthday. Jesus, bro, cut the film. Her parents don't even care about her being dumped outside of how it makes them look. They go on to make her perform for the crowd by summoning the Labrys,
Labrys!
which is a powerful weapon and apparently a lesbian feminist symbol. I do think it's funny they used an actual Wikipedia article to explain what it is, so credit where credit is due. Saira tries to summon it and fails in front of a disappointed crowd. After all, she just turned 22.
23.
I can't believe she's 23 today!
And apparently she should have had this thing a while ago. In this short scene, we learn how shitty her parents are. They clearly only care about Saira and how she reflects their status. They don't know her age or care about her interests. They don't even try to comfort her after she was broken up with by the only person in her entire life that's shown an interest in her. Also, this character, Queen Leanne, is a trans woman voiced by a trans woman and just summoned a Labrys. Keep that in the back of your head, it'll be relevant later. The scene ends and we move on to a disheveled Saira who's been spam texting Kiki some clingy nonsense that got her dumped to begin with. Meanwhile, Kiki is practicing Naruto hand signs in a bed full of women. Suddenly, the door gets kicked down, and I can't even show this next scene because the women in Kiki's bed get torn apart. It was at this scene that I realized the movie had some tonal inconsistencies. It goes from an overly colorful and safe aesthetic to brutally graphic and then gratuitous nudity. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of nudity in this film, by the way. We're about 5 minutes into the movie, and I've skipped over about 4 examples. I'm fine with media that uses a colorful palette to play on expectations. Panty and Stocking comes to mind, but playing with those tones typically has some sort of message behind it. With Lesbian Space Princess, the message rings so hollow that it doesn't really justify the tonal whiplash, but I'm getting ahead of myself. For now, Kiki gets kidnapped by the film's main antagonist.
We're the straight, white Maleians. Who?
Let's pause for a moment. I think people are underappreciating how funny the names of these villains are and how funny the in-universe response is to them.
Who? Oh, come on!
There's this idea of straight white male erasure that a fair bit of incels and other troubled individuals believe in. Part of the blame of that erasure is placed on queer communities, people of color, and the unironic belief of woke media placing more diverse people in films and media as a way to reduce straight white culture. The fact that they live in a futuristic queer society and don't know what a straight white male is, straight white Malian is pretty funny. It's a solid joke. I also appreciate the Dr. Evil Pinky reveal. It's a nice touch. Anyway, back to the film. The straight white Malians have taken Kiki because it's the only way to get to Saira. They need Saira to power their brand new chick magnet, but the only way to power it is with her Labrys.
That seems really specific.
So they FaceTime Saira and let her know she has 24 hours to give up her Labrys in exchange for saving Kiki. They verify that she actually has the weapon, and we get a fun little nod to Fairly Odd Parents.
Saira, please tell me you actually have the Labrys.
This is where I'd put it.
Labrys.
If I had one!
Saira then decides to go and save Kiki, and we're introduced to the other major conflict of the film. A black, oozing, void-like creature that represents Saira's self-doubt and antagonizes her throughout the film, voicing and weaponizing all her insecurities. She puts those fears to the side for now and focuses on saving Kiki. Using a sassy computer that may be an homage to Courage the Cowardly Dog, she learns that someone named Blade can help her summon her Labrys. This is where the adventure really begins, and we get introduced to my favorite character in the whole movie, the problematic ship. Now, this works as a double entendre because a problematic ship can be a relationship that people push when it doesn't work, like in the case of Saira and Kiki, or how primarily gay fandoms tend to ship straight characters into gay relationships. Or in the case of the movie, a literal sentient ship that says problematic things.
So, Sahara, where are you from?
Clitopolis?
Yeah, but, like, where are you from?
The palace?
No. Where are you really from?
Well, my cultural heritage is half Clitopian and half Indian.
Namaste.
But my girlfriend is there.
What the fuck is your friend doing there?
She's in trouble. And she's my girlfriend.
Yeah, like a girl who's a friend.
Saira and the problematic ship have to leave a literal safe space bubble to escape Clitopolis. That was a painful sentence. The movie has a habit of personifying online ideas. Sometimes it works, like with the aforementioned problematic ship, but other times it gets pretty heavy-handed. Clitopolis is literally a vagina. The royal pussy, a character I spared you of earlier, is also literally a vagina. A joke so nice they had to make it twice. It's the kind of humor that can be abrasive if you overdo it, and Lesbian Space Princess absolutely throws caution to the wind. Even after leaving gay space, they enter normie space. Honestly, I would have found this funny if the movie hadn't already spent so much time reminding me of how gay it is. And that was one of my biggest issues so far, and I'm only about 10 minutes in. There's plenty of queer media like the goated She-Ra that can represent a queer audience without constantly screaming, "Look how gay this is." If anything, being this heavy-handed can make the movie less appealing to the audience it's trying to reach. But again, getting ahead of myself. We cut back to the straight white Malians who are hosting an Alpha Bro seminar with a little Andrew Tate picture in the background, and pause number 2. I've seen this scene misrepresented a few times. The Maleians are giving a seminar on what to say to women, and obviously the advice is terrible because they're mocking dating gurus.
Now take note, boys, alright? Act like you're listening and then interject over the top of it.
One guy says they have a lot of opinions on Marvel movies.
I have a lot of opinions on Marvel movies. Would they be interested in them?
They'll love that.
And for some reason, people took that as the movie saying men shouldn't express their interest because women won't like them. That's not really the joke here. They're making fun of the guys who talk to women like, "Oh, you like Marvel? Name every Marvel character." Or the guys who immediately go, "Actually, Captain Marvel was the worst movie ever made." And when you ask why, he just says, "I don't like Brie Larson." Come on, dude. How do you not like Brie Larson? You know exactly the type of people they're making fun of. We've all met this guy or had to mute them in Discord. That said, I do think the movie deserves some blame. If the jokes were written or delivered better, there probably wouldn't be nearly as much confusion about what they were actually mocking. Then again, 90% of the people making fun of the movie haven't actually seen it, so probably wouldn't have made a difference. We cut back to Saira who, after being told women can't drive, a very funny joke, immediately crashes the ship. Now they need a moon crystal to get it running again, and luckily they just crash landed on a moon with a moon farm. Convenient. This is where you start to notice that the movie isn't really interested in situational conflicts. Finding the crystal, repairing the ship, all of that gets resolved within minutes because the actual conflict is Saira's inner turmoil. The external problems are basically just excuses to get her from one character moment to the next. And speaking of characters, this is where we meet the best and pretty much only good character in the entire movie, Willow. Willow is a non binary embodiment of Golden Retriever energy.
I'm so glad you're here. I came to this moon to write my solo album, but I fell down a hole.
I fell down a hole too.
We have so much in common.
After Willow introduces themselves in a song, which happens a little too often in this movie, a pink ooze starts filling the cavern where the crystal was taken. It stabs Saira, latches onto her, and the more she doubts and hates herself, the more the ooze sets in.
Why is everything always so hard?
It's a very literal manifestation of Saira's insecurities, quite literally stopping her and potentially killing her as she eventually passes out. It's also a little redundant, as the black ooze was already serving the purpose of this scene. They basically double dipped on the character conflict, but whatever. Willow fights back against the pink ooze by speaking positively about themselves, freeing Saira, and they make a run for it. Saira drops the crystal while escaping and immediately gets berated by the ship, only for Willow to point out another crystal sitting right behind them. Again, the situational conflicts in this movie are resolved almost immediately. I understand why people find that disappointing because it makes the movie feel like it has no stakes, but of all the movie's many flaws, this one ranks pretty low for me. What bothers me more is how often the movie undercuts itself and forgets its own continuity. Willow is the one who points out the incredibly obvious crystal, despite saying that they aren't very observant.
Besides, I might not have found that ladder without you. I'm not super observant.
And that kind of inconsistency becomes important later because it starts to affect how I view Saira's character arc. We cut back to Kiki and the Maleians who are torturing her by explaining a card game. And honestly, I think this is one of the more problematic jokes in the movie. Up to this point, the straight white Maleians have been legitimately annoying and villainous, embodying the worst traits of incels and alpha bros. But here, they're just explaining a card game they're genuinely interested in, much to Kiki's lamenting. And I think this joke hit a nerve with a lot of people because there are guys who already struggle to express themselves, and being rejected because they got excited about one of their hobbies is a genuine fear.
Why can't you chicks ever like what we like?
But I think the joke would have worked better if Kiki was actually interested in the card game, only for the Maleians to reject her because she doesn't understand it and starts explaining it all over again. Now, the joke remains about them being their own worst enemies instead of mocking what could be a genuine attempt at connecting with someone. As written, I think the movie just misses the mark. Or maybe I'm just being a sensitive Malian, who knows. We head back to the problematic ship where Saira and Willow indulge in the same reinforced stereotype from earlier, queer people falling in love at record speed. They start blushing at each other while explaining their backgrounds, and Willow sings about being in a band, feeling like they weren't their true self, and eventually breaking free. This movie also has a lot of singing, very much in the vein of Hazbin Hotel. I didn't actually mind it because the cast has a great voice, but it does occasionally feel like a shortcut around actual storytelling when you just cut away to song. What I really hate about this sequence, though, is how it undermines the movie's entire coming-of-age message. The point is supposed to be learning to love yourself, but the narrative keeps having other people tell Saira how great she is.
Oh, I'm actually really boring.
I don't think you are.
Willow basically calls her the coolest person ever because she can do a magic trick. Okay, I guess. They've known each other for about 5 minutes, but Willow is already laying it on thick about how amazing Saira is. I understand what the movie is trying to do here. This is supposed to be the first step towards Saira realizing that there are things about herself worth being confident in. But because Willow was doing almost all of the work for her, the realization doesn't feel earned. Ironically, Saira's journey towards self-love is almost entirely propelled by other people's validation. From here, the movie goes into a complete downward spiral. This film is at its weakest when it focuses on narrative instead of comedy, and nowhere is that more true than at Blade's club. Once they arrive at the club, Willow and Saira split up, which is a mistake because Saira just isn't that interesting on her own. Watching her fumble around the club while being nagged by the same insecurities we've already seen 3 or 4 times now just isn't that compelling. We get it, she's a loser. Eventually, Saira gets overwhelmed by her emotions in the bathroom and meets this airheaded blonde character who complains about dating a guy who doesn't appreciate her and only staying with them because he's hot.
You shouldn't let him make you feel so terrible. Why do you let him do that?
He's just, like, really fucking hot!
Which is exactly what Saira said about Kiki.
What's so great about this Kiki?
Well, she's just really fucking hot.
Wait, is that seriously it?
So obviously this woman is supposed to be a mirror for Saira. By telling this complete stranger that she deserves better and shouldn't let someone treat her poorly, Saira is essentially giving herself that same advice. It's not exactly subtle, but the conversation does give Saira enough confidence to finally approach Blade and demand their help. Blade does agree to help, explaining that their parents are psychologists, so they understand why Saira can't summon her Labrys. They guide her through meditation, leading into arguably the best animated sequence in the movie, or at least the most artistic. Saira takes an inner journey through her insecurities and sees firsthand how poorly the people around her have treated her. She starts to understand the root causes of her insecurities, which is a pretty good start to understanding how to deal with them. The whole scene has this over the garden wall style darkness that I thought was really well done. Eventually, Saira overcomes the darkness by literally loving herself, because this movie is allergic to subtlety, and pulls the Labrys from between her legs like she's an anniversary character from Brown Dust 2. Please don't look it up. Now, what happens next is arguably the most controversial aspect of the film. After Blade helps Saira summon their Labrys, they quickly betray them and take it for themselves. The problem here is that the Labrys was meant to be a symbol of lesbian femininity, and people interpreted Blade's betrayal and taking that symbol as a tariff or transphobic dog whistle, and even cite the fact that Blade is in normie space instead of gay space as a reason it isn't inclusive to trans identity. Respectfully, in my ignorant straight Malian perspective, this is wrong for a few reasons. Number 1, Blade isn't trans. They're a drag queen. There is no implication that they are trans, however, it is explicitly stated that they are in drag.
My real passion.
Drag?
Weapons.
Also, the voice actor for Blade, Queen Kong, identifies as a gay man.
In drag, my pronouns are she, her. Outside of drag, he, him.
So again, not trans. 2, as far as Blade's club not being a gay space, I don't think of drag as inherently gay. But again, maybe I'm just an ignorant straight Malian, but I thought drag was just dudes in makeup and elaborate, typically feminine outfits. Wouldn't it be more progressive for them to be in normie spaces? I also think guys should act or wear whatever they feel makes them comfortable and happy without having to be labeled as gay for it. Also, there were straight people in Blade's club, as seen by the blonde airhead from earlier, so maybe they just chose to have their club in normie space. There doesn't need to be a trans exclusionary reasoning to this character that isn't even trans to begin with. Number 3, remember how I said at the start of the video, Queen Leanne was also a lesbian trans woman, played by a lesbian trans woman? Well, quick reminder, she can also summon her Labrys, which means this doesn't even really work as a tariff dog whistle because the only known lesbian trans woman is also able to summon the symbol of lesbian femininity without issue. Overall, I didn't find the scene to be transphobic or trans exclusionary. I think it's just not well thought out and lacked competent storytelling. I mean, could you imagine if it was a competent, well thought out story and transphobic? Now that would be problematic. Saira and Willow team up and take down Blade, who was fighting with a pineapple, which I'm pretty sure is a symbol for swingers, and then Blade gets decapitated. This movie is so metal at random times. After that, Saira and Willow get back on the ship, and Willow serenades Saira with a song about how great and awesome she is. This part is admittedly pretty cringe. And then they have sex. They've known each other for about 5 hours, and they're treating this mission to save her ex like a Tinder date. It's weird, and I can see why people think it's overly sexual and reinforcing stereotypes to the point of misrepresentation. After that, we cut to the Maleians and get the best joke in the entire movie. You've probably already seen the Thespian Lesbian clip, but if you haven't, I'll play a part of it for you here.
Kill the lesbian!
To be or not to be is the question.
Oh, God!
Bro, I said kill the lesbian, not the thespian. What the heck, bro?
You can hear they sound
Yes.
the same.
I understand.
I mean, I know this isn't my argument, but I'm pretty sure you said thespian.
I don't think I did. You do this. You team up and you
said
pick on me.
thespian.
Fucking, I swear to God I
Wow.
didn't. And if I did, I apologize.
Now who's the lesbian, hey?
What? No.
that
No,
doesn't
no,
make
no.
I loved this joke. The Malians' delivery is top tier, the gaslighting is excellent, and most reactions I've seen agree it's funny, but say it goes on too long. I personally disagree. I think a joke going on for so long that it reaches absurdity becomes its own form of comedy. It reminded me of Smiling Friends, specifically the season 1 finale, which is basically an 11-minute joke about Pim forgetting to book a hotel for their vacation. That's the entire episode. It's also my favorite episode and the second worst rated episode of the show. I'm sure that's not related. Anyway, back to the movie. The Maleians, growing impatient and tired of Kiki's presence, decide to call Saira only to catch her with Bedhead next to Willow, who Saira pushes out of frame and calls a nobody.
Wait, where are you? Is that sex hair? Who the fuck is that?
Hey, I'm Willow, Saira's new partner.
What? No, they're no one.
This is the moment the movie lost me. Willow was such a good and kind character, and Saira does her so dirty for an ex that's just manipulating her. And even after getting shoved and called a nobody, Willow tried to salvage the situation, saying they're not against a poly relationship, and Saira, well, I respect the boundaries she places here, but Saira still rejects Willow.
I think maybe you and I should just be friends.
A fumble so bad she's giving Jimmy Olsen a run for his money. Saira literally abandons Willow at the nearest stop and continues her adventure.
Fuck you, Saira.
Alright, climax of the movie. Let's speedrun this because the movie was pretty boring and I'm getting bored talking about it. Saira enters the most dangerous place in the universe, prompting a pretty funny fourth wall break.
That's the worst, most dangerous place in the universe?
Yeah, apparently this is it.
They're attacked by a literal massive dick, only to discover a tiny dick at the center of it all. Haha, overcompensating masculinity, very subtle. Saira defeats it, crashes outside the man cave, and finally confronts the straight white Maleians. Now, I both like and dislike this ending. Once Saira arrives, she hands over the Labrys, and true to their word, the Maleians release Kiki. Saira, having rescued her ex, tells her that there's still time for them to make it to the couple's ball. Kiki tells her that just because they rescued her doesn't mean they owe them a relationship or anything for that matter, which is honestly not a bad message considering the incel parallels of her captors. Saving Kiki was the right thing to do, and she should have done it because it was the right thing to do. It's the bare minimum, and you're not obligated to someone's affections for it. However, this does obviously devastate Saira. Having been crushed and losing her confidence, the Labrys starts to disappear. Angered, the Maleians toss Saira into the magnet, injuring her. Saira reaches out to Kiki, who just abandons her ass just like she abandoned Willow. Once again, Saira's insecurities threaten to swallow her up, but she has this epiphany that maybe she isn't the problem. It's all the people around her that have been the problem. She's great, actually, and she powers up and summons her Labrys. This is such bullshit. Nothing about this journey has convinced me that Saira herself isn't part of the problem, especially considering she just dumped Willow the way that she did. And like I've been saying, 90% of the confidence she supposedly gained has come from other people validating her. That is the antithesis of what this movie is trying to say. This is supposed to be Saira learning to love herself, but very little of that growth actually comes from Saira. I understand that this was always the conclusion we were heading towards, but the movie hasn't done enough to earn it. Maybe with more time they could have gotten there naturally, but as it stands, I just didn't buy it. Anyway, she summons her Labrys and cuts off a Malian arm. Again, metal at random times. After asking them why they've done all this, Saira tells them that they don't actually need a chick magnet. They need to learn to love themselves, because they're really not that different from her.
I went through all of this.
But the Maleians, who don't listen to women, completely ignore her and activate the chick magnet anyway. And this leads to a genuinely perfect payoff. They activate the magnet, it pulls in a woman, and yeah, she just explodes. She just explodes. There's a moment of silence, and then the Maleians basically repeat the exact monologue about self-love that Saira just gave them, like they came up with it themselves. It's great. Perfect full circle joke. Saira even says,
Shame we can't just date each other.
and they do. Now, was this movie as bad as they say? Honestly, I don't think so. I think this movie's biggest crime is being boring and a little cringe. However, the reaction to this movie is so out of proportion that I can't help but think it's some sort of psyop. So many of the people hating on this movie haven't even watched it. And that's not to say you're required to view something to have an opinion on it, but if you're going to say something is pushing homophobic or transphobic rhetoric or so bad that it unites the world, I would hope you at least have the decency to view it yourself. I also think it's weird that the one thing that can rally a bunch of different communities is hate against another marginalized community. I think a lot of people are doing this in harmless fun, But this type of joke is one that allows bigots to easily join in and try to push their agenda, which is exactly what this feels like. Another moment of, see, look how queers are ruining everything. I mean, does it not strike anyone as weird that we're dogpiling a movie that came out a year ago for seemingly no reason, and it just so happens to be a film that's unapologetically gay, and that makes fun of straight white Malians? Did we really not learn anything from Gamergate? Are we really this blind to a psyop? Whatever. Everyone that I know and reached out to in the LGBTQ community said that they didn't like the movie and that it reinforced annoying stereotypes, those being quickly falling in love, quickly finding a new partner, cheating on your partner, or just how they're annoyed that queer media can exist without hypersexualizing it, even if it's for comedic effect, which I think are all fair points. The one thing I don't like about the discussion around this film is the argument against Blade being the villain. Some people express that it's really disappointing for yet another villain to be trans when one, they aren't trans to begin with, and two, I don't think there's anything wrong with a trans person being the villain in a movie. Why not have representation in all facets of film, good or bad? And three, everyone in this movie sucked. The straight white Malians sucked, the queens suck, Kiki, Saira, everyone sucked. Singling out Blade and misrepresenting their character seems so disingenuous that you really have to question why that narrative is being pushed. Overall, the movie wasn't that bad. The art and animation were great for a small indie film with no larger budget. The voice acting was phenomenal. The songs were overabundant but well sung. The comedy might not have been for everyone, but I'd say the jokes weren't actually bad, just very gay. If this were a series, I think it would have been received a lot better, and I think if it was an episode of Rick and Morty or even Smiling Friends with the same premise, people would have been a lot more receptive of it. The narrative is legitimately awful, and the writing is so poorly thought out that it borders on the offensive. Acts 2 and 3 focus more on Saira's inner turmoil, placing the only decent, and I say that without much confidence, part of the movie, the comedy, to a back seat. The movie does seem to reinforce some negative stereotypes, but nothing that egregious. There is an overindulgence in nudity that serves no purpose, comedic or otherwise, and the tonal shifts to brutal dismemberment didn't help tell a story or give a consistent feel to the world or danger in it. At no point did I feel any true urgency or threat to the character, making the overall coming of age story lackluster in its conclusion, and I still don't think Saira actually grew very much from the adventure. I think the story told me she did, but I don't feel that it happened in what I watched. Also, for what it's worth, Blade isn't actually dead. They go on to be Saira's therapist and family counseling. I'd honestly give this movie a 5 out of 10. That is, until you factor in the voice actress for Saira, Shabana Aziz, who, if you don't know, is an actress on The Pit and looks like this.
Damn!
Yeah, that's gonna bump you up a few points. 7 out of 10, no notes.